Hello and welcome to this podcast series on the new European General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR. My name is Steve Lofthouse, a GDPR specialist with the Proceed Group, and in this series we're going to be looking at the various pieces of SAP software that will help companies in their journey to becoming GDPR compliant and maintaining that compliance moving forwards. Now, it's important to remember that the GDPR is both mandatory and demonstrable. You have to be compliant and you also have to be able to demonstrate compliance. All of the software tools that we're going to be talking about in this series are going to enable you to do that. And in this particular podcast, we're going to be looking at SAP's Information Steward software. Now, Information Steward is what I would call one of the foundation pieces of software, in that it's a piece of software that we're going to use right at the start of our journey to GDPR compliance, when we're conducting our information audit. SAP's Information Steward is going to give us the visibility across our data landscape to understand the kinds of data, the categories of data that we're holding, and where that data sits. Now, there's a very good reason for doing that. Part of that is that there's a requirement within the GDPR for the data controller to know exactly what data is held and where and how it's used. But also, and perhaps more pertinent, the GDPR defines certain categories of data as special. It defines special categories of personal data, and it requires that those special categories of personal data are afforded more protection. Now, the GDPR states that those special categories of data are things like personal data which reveals racial or ethnic origin, personal data that reveals political opinion, religious or other beliefs, personal data which is about health or sexual life, or personal data which indicates trade union membership. Now, initially you may think, well, as a company we don't keep data on people's sexual health. We don't keep that kind of data at all. True, but you may well keep data about somebody's ethnic origin. You may well keep data about somebody's religion. You may well keep data about somebody's trade union membership. And the trade union membership gives you a clue as to where to look for these kinds of data. Because one of the main areas to look for this kind of data is going to be your HCM system, your HR system. Within your HR system, you will be storing ethnic origin. You will most likely be storing religious affiliation. You may well be storing within your HR system health data. If you have a note within your HR system about an employee being off sick, then that is classed as health data. There was a case that went before the European Court where somebody the court stated that the reference to the fact that an individual has injured her foot and is on half-time on medical grounds constitutes personal data containing health within the meaning of the GDPR. So if you are keeping notes within your HCM system with regards to employees' health, whether they're currently off sick, whether they're on half-time, this kind of thing, that constitutes special data. That's classified as a special category of data and needs to be afforded more protection. Now, you need to discover these pieces of data, and Information Steward is the tool that's going to help you do that. So, Information Steward has a number of features within it which are going to assist us in our journey to becoming GDPR compliant and moving forwards, maintaining and possibly exceeding GDPR compliance. So Information Steward allows us to conduct a data audit across our entire data landscape. And that data audit can be used to identify the types of data that we hold, where that data is held, and what processes we use that data for. So we can use Information Steward to gain an insight into our data landscape and to identify these special categories of data. We can also use Information Steward to manage the quality of the data within our data landscape. There is, enshrined within the GDPR, the principle of data quality, that the data controller must ensure that the data which is used and stored is of the highest quality, that the data controller should take all reasonable steps to ensure that the data used and stored is of the highest quality. So the principle of data quality is enshrined within the GDPR. Now we can use Information Steward to meet and exceed this requirement, this thread which runs through the GDPR. So as well as auditing our data landscape in order to identify the different types of data that are held within it, we can also use Information Steward to measure in a quantifiable way the quality of the data within our landscape. We can build business rules focused on data, and we can use those business rules within Information Steward to audit our data landscape and identify areas where the data quality is poor. So maybe we have a database table which is populated from a website, for example, and the data contained within it is of a poor quality because the checks and controls placed on the input forms within that website are not as robust as they could be. We can identify that data quality issue with Information Steward, and then we can take steps to rectify it. And we can use Information Steward again in a defensive way. So the business rules that we built and utilised in Information Steward in order to audit our data landscape, we can then use those business rules from a defensive position and use those business rules to prevent poor quality data from entering our data store in the first place. So Information Steward is capable of doing those two jobs for us, not only auditing our landscape and identifying the types of data and identifying data quality issues, but also defending against data quality issues moving forwards. So we were able to identify these special categories of data. We're able to adhere to and in some ways exceed the principle of data quality. But there's also an additional strand which runs through the GDPR all the way through it, and it's a strand associated with security, that the data controller should put in measures to ensure that data is stored securely, that unauthorized access, processing and disclosure of that data is prevented. Now Information Steward is a very powerful tool. If you have insight into the entire data landscape and the ability to interrogate that data landscape and discover various pieces of information, that's a very, very powerful tool, and it needs to be managed in a safe and secure way. And in order to do that, Information Steward implements the role-based user interfaces. So people are only able to view the data in a manner which is associated with their role. So we're meeting this principle of security with regards to data discovery. We can do all that on an ongoing basis. the Information Commissioner in the UK has put forth the idea that the GDPR is the base standard for data protection, and that wherever possible, companies should aim to meet and exceed the standards set within the GDPR. Now, Information Steward is one of these pieces of software from SAP which does meet and also exceed the standard set by the GDPR. We're going to have continuous real-time visibility into our data landscape. We're going to have continuous real-time identification of data quality issues. We're going to have proactive data governance and prevention of poor quality prevention of poor quality data entering our system. We have identified and tagged special categories of data, and we're able to identify and tag special categories of data as they come into our system and automatically afford those special categories of data the relevant enhanced protections. And we're able to do that in a manner which is safe and secure and auditable. Because remember that there is a need within the GDPR to prove, to demonstrate that you are in compliance with it. It's not simply enough to meet it, you also have to demonstrate your ongoing compliance with it. And Information Steward is the tool that's going to enable us to do that. So it's a foundation tool that we're going to be using right at the start and continuing to use on a regular basis throughout our need to remain GDPR compliant. So that's SAP's Information Steward. I hope you found that information useful. There are more of these podcasts coming up, and as well as these particular podcasts, we do have a blog series running, and that series is aligned to the Information Commissioner's 12 steps. And we've gathered up our knowledge and experience of working with SAP and SAP data over a number of years. We've used our knowledge from working on GDPR compliance projects, and we've produced a blog series which has more meat on the bones. It's about helping companies on their road to becoming GDPR compliant, so I would encourage you to check out that particular series. And the easiest way to find it, rather than give you a really long URL, the easiest way to find it is to use your favourite internet search engine and search for proceed.com GDPR. My name's Steve Lofthouse. Thank you very much.